Okay, and this is the pilot episode of Jonah Reynolds' podcast. Yeah, so how's it going?
It's going. It's pretty crazy and intense these days. Having a lot of fun.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, like, well, this is the first episode. What do we, what we should probably introduce ourselves and, I work for Earthship Biotecture, and your dad is my boss, and you are the son of Michael Reynolds, who is a prolific architect in the sustainable building space, and you have your own company, Pangea Builders, and you're basically looking at doing a lot and moving the Earthship techniques, evolving them, and so can you tell me a little bit about your background growing up in Earthships? You worked for Earthships for many years in your career, and what was it like, growing up with Michael Reynolds as your dad?
Yeah, that's a great question. I actually get that a lot. It's totally amazing and lucky and blessed to even know about this, let alone doing it, let alone being born into it. And looking at the kids these days and some of the families that are living in Earthships, it's starting out in these types of buildings seems to be normal when I'm young. And then I look around and get older and the perspective grows, and I'm like, that's not the way the rest of the world lives. That's the way really not much anyone else lives except all of our ancient ancestors and people in the past before the last, whatever it's been, 400 or 500 years. And so that was an interesting connection when I realized that this is connected to the way all of our people lived for thousands of years in the rhythms of nature and with respect and honor for the land and each other and the planet and everything. But it was very strange because there's a lot of years there where these buildings were weird and different and experimental and didn't work or work too well. And so we moved around from house to house a lot. My parents split when I was 2, and my mother went to LA, and that's in the whole entertainment industry, and so that was that world. And then with my father, that was that world. 2 very contrasting things. And just watching these buildings evolve with the crew and all the contributions that everyone made, and so it was tough having that big difference. My father has been still to this day laser focused on buildings and evolving them from being an architect and a builder. So maybe that changes things or doesn't allow him to have the relationships we would all like him to have with us as individuals. And I think there's a quote or something out there that's like, you have a great relationship with the world, people who do these amazing, like once in a generation or once in a 1,000-year thing, but different with the individuals. And, it is what it is, no judgment or anything, but, but we're all here, we're standing on the shoulders of giants, who have done these things. And there's been a lot of people over the years that got what we call the Earthship concept to where it is now. And obviously we're all super grateful, but it's an amazing, beautiful thing. And yeah, I'm a Leo and a giant ego and crazy ambitious and serious lack of patience. But, this is an absolutely bonkers, amazing thing. I've done some, interviews and lectures about it, but it's like, I see people, and I've done this too with my best friends, Damon and Seth, when the first Batman came out or Empire Strikes Back, and you'll wait around the theater for like 2 days. And I see people do that with Nikes and the Apple iPhone, and it's like, sliced bread. But and fire. And again, this might sound ego, given my last name and things, but having a building that is off grid and sustainable and takes care of you, that basically anyone can do and build, it is beyond words and one of those most amazing things ever of all time. And so every single morning when I get up at 5, I'm just so grateful to even know about it, let alone do it. And then we get to do it with an amazing team of people, right? Like yourself. So very, very lucky, very crazy experience and ride. And there's endless stories in there throughout it all.
Yeah. And we're talking about really 55 years. Mike has been, your dad started here in 1969 right here in Taos. And but really, even to get to the first quote unquote Earthship, that was, not till like 1988, he built a ton of experimental buildings. And so when you say, yeah, we are standing on the shoulders of giants, because, Mike had to fail a lot before he got to this, what we have nowadays, which is really a well-working machine. I mean, these things, they perform thermally really well. And that's, yeah, like, and so, in our previous conversations, you talked about, taking what, the Earthship prototype and actually just, expanding the use of different materials, and instead of just tires, maybe, 3D printing tire walls, and, just using technology to take this to even the next level. And that's kind of exciting. That's very exciting, I think.
Yeah. And it's been a lot of interesting buildings, like I said, and Denzel Washington says, if you're not failing, you're not even trying. Right. So it's okay to fail. It's part of life. It's not like I try to fail, but it's part of it. And when you fail, that's when learning happens. You don't learn when it's just easy and successful. But yeah, what our company Pangea does is, we take what we've been doing with the Earthship. I've been doing it basically since I was like 12 or 13, doing lectures and everything, and I'm 51 now. And we take that and we do it into any form factor, any floor plan, any layout. There is a reason why these conventional floor plans, Craftsman's, Colonials, Ranchers, whatever you want to call them, are popular and successful and in demand. They work for a family or whatever it is, whatever culture you're in, Europe, America, whatever. And so what we like to do, and what we've had clients asking us to do for decades and decades, is we like the Earthship. It's awesome. And, 20 years ago, we figured out how to, with Earthship Biotecture, make a building work in any climate. 3 feet off the ground, we have 70 degrees without fossil fuels, not to mention water, power, and everything else. And so we take that and we apply it to conventional floor plans and layouts and form factors, so that you're looking at a building and it does not look at all like an eco building, let alone an Earthship. And so we make it an Earthship. We make it off grid or partially off grid. The Earthships that we've been doing for decades that are completely off grid, that's all the way over here. No fossil fuels off grid, and that's wonderful. But if we do buildings that are 10% sustainable or 10% off grid, makes a huge, giant difference compared to these stick frame things that are just, I'm sorry, but they're raping the planet. It is absurd. It's embarrassing being a human that we put up those types of buildings. It pisses me off to no end. And so that's what Pangea does, is we apply that 50 years of knowledge to more conventional looks and layouts.
Yeah. And so that, I mean, that's another way of going about it is, if you did have we don't have to use, so right now Earthships use about 45% recycled materials by weight. That's the number that's thrown around. Most of that weight is tires, but if you're just doing 15%, recycled materials. That's more than most houses are doing anyway, you know. So, but we're seeing scale it so much bigger. If that's the case, is that what you're thinking? Is sort of take us, you know, be less ambitious about saying being totally off the grid and doing all those things, but you make up for it in the scale that you're improving the overall housing situation. And so is that
well, I mean, it is, everything when you scale and you do volume, margins widen and the effectiveness widens too. But one-off homes that are, you know, like I said, 10% sustainable are light years ahead of frame. So it's not so much about scaling. It's just doing what's appropriate and not letting great get in the way of good. Because it is an extreme thing to do a building that's completely off grid, right? You have to, your design is limited, especially when you're in an intense winter. Now, Earthships do not have 45% recycled materials.
What's the number? Is it, you know?
So if it's by weight, tires don't weigh that much compared to all the rammed earth in them. I'd say it's probably closer to 10 or 15, but that's not really the point. So if you look at the energy that goes into a home, both construction and then once it's done, and then the life of the home. Obviously, the life of the home is going to be better when it's crafted better, like Earthships are. They tend to last generations as opposed to a stick frame thing. And so 10% of the energy of that home all time, including construction, is in construction. 80% of the life of the home, and this is on average, and it's probably a little bit different compared to the design and everything, 80% is in the rest of the life of the home. So therefore, that makes me not too concerned about the materials we use, because I need those materials to perform, because then the building is going to use that much less energy over time. You know, preferably, obviously, ideally, if it's off grid, there are no utility bills and it's not using any fossil fuels. So then I'm like, okay, rammed earth and tires, that's obviously the best that holds temperature. It's the best for sweat equity, which is the most sustainable thing you can do, human labor. It's the best in terms of recycling. The materials are distributed all over the planet, all those things. And we've done tests on materials that hold temperature the best, and it's beer. Beer holds temperature the best, better than rammed earth, better than water, better than anything else. And it makes sense because it's water, which is thermal mass, and it also has millions of little air pockets. So it's got the best of insulation and it's got the best of thermal mass, so it literally holds temperature longer. Milk was close.
Beer? The actual liquid beer.
Liquid beer holds temperature the best. Yes.
Wow.
You're not going to build a house out of beer. I mean,
we drink the beer first. That's
right.
That was.
So, you know, we've done all kinds of crazy experiments with all different systems, and we did just a sidetrack real quick. We did a thermal mass refrigerator up at Reach.
Yeah, I've seen it. Yeah.
And so we lined that with beer.
I see. Yeah.
And the beer disappeared from the crew and everything.
Yeah.
Kind of a joking thing there.
Yeah.
But yeah, technically that works the best. And so back to the point of what material do we use for the structure? I'm not too concerned about it. And so when I talk to the client about what their needs are and desires are and budgets are, and then we look at the environment, or, you know, what are the needs of a given project? We can't just go, okay, it's going to be tires, right? That doesn't work. You have to look at every building, unless we're doing a giant community, and then we're doing, 400 buildings, and that's when we're going to 3D print it. And I'll get to that in a second. But we and this is what Pangea does differently, is we talk to the client, we find out what their needs, their desires, their budgets, their hopes, their dreams, their wishes, and we integrate all that together with all of our recommendations, and we're like, okay, rammed earth and tires is the best for that. Or like the case in this 4-bedroom curved Earthship that we're doing in California, we're doing that as a 10-inch pour concrete. And beer is better in terms of holding temperature, but it's all right there. It's all basically the same in terms of performance, rammed earth and beer and concrete. And so the concrete gives us like this 10-inch thick wall, and we built a split level concrete Earthship back in the 90s in Los Angeles.
Yeah, Topanga Canyon, right?
It's in no, it's not in Topanga Canyon. It's on the north side of the valley, which is, I think, over there, something like Ventura County.
Ventura,
I believe,
yeah. Oh, okay, I thought it
which
was
is a
Topanga
strict
Canyon.
county.
I actually talked to the lady a couple years ago, actually, because I just chased her down because I found out it was in California and I was living there in Los Angeles. I chased her down, like I found her number on the internet. I called her. And she talked with me for like 35 minutes about how much she loved it. Yeah.
Yeah. So then it's like, and when we do poured concrete, you can still have an earth berm. You can still do all the things the same. So it's really a lot of different materials. And yeah, concrete is terrible for the planet. Absolutely horrible. But there is no replacement.
Could you explain that to me and us? Like, why is concrete such a not an eco-friendly material?
It destroys the land where all the cement is and all the inside materials there are mined and taken, and the mine tellings and the water that runs off of it, and then when all that's brought to the factory to make the cement and then mixing, it's just it's bad. It's really bad.
Okay.
So there's not much replacement for it. But again, getting back to the construction part is really like 15 to 20% of the energy. And that includes embodied energy. That includes the pollution and everything. And 80% is the life of the home. So if I get concrete that performs well by holding temperature, and it allows me to have a building that still holds temperature and passive solar and the cooling tubes and everything, I'm fine with it. I'm not too concerned. Because if we craft it well, that building is going to last 100 years, 300 years, right? Like Earthships typically do. Then the embodied energy and the impact of that building is going to be negligible over time. So, and that allows us to have more latitude with clients about what that building should look like and how it fits into a neighborhood. Not everyone wants it to be, look like some dugout hobbit home. Right?
Yeah.
And that's fine because we can still make it perform.
Now, I get this question a whole lot, in the visitor center, for the audience. I work in the visitor center, the Earthship Visitor Center, and they always ask me about two things: hempcrete and aircrete. And what is your opinion on hempcrete? I was under the impression that it doesn't have the strength, it doesn't have like the tensile strength of like a cement-based concrete, but yeah, what is your opinion on hempcrete and aircrete?
And I do want to loop back to the 3D printing thing, but hempcrete is not structural. It's like a plaster, right? And it's strong, and hemp is super super strong. And by the way, we're getting into creating bat insulation with hemp instead of fiberglass, and it has a much higher R value. On a remodel we're doing in Santa Fe, where we just got like 8 pallets of hemp insulation. And so, but yeah, no, it's great. Hemp needs to be utilized way more on everything.
Yeah.
Rigid insulation, particle board, and all that we're getting into helping to develop. But it's basically a plaster. I wouldn't do blocks or anything like that out of it. Aircrete, same thing. It's just, but I'm you got to understand, I've been building Earthships my whole life, which is crazy strong and over-engineered. It's like an elephant foot. It's going to take so much weight.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm used to with these giant Vigas. I'm not used to frame things, even though I've lived in them and lived in manufactured homes, partly because I had to, partly because I wanted to, so I can experience everything. But I'm just not going to put my family in a home that I can drive my truck through. Or I can take a hose through to, like Cobb, and just a couple hours later I have a hole in the wall. That's just doesn't work for me. Yeah. So that's just my personal opinion. That's what works for me. And but when I have clients who want to do Cobb or even straw bale, I don't touch those. But just if I can get on the 3D printing.
Yeah, go.
So we've been watching 3D printing for a while. It's been basically cement and not concrete, so it's not strong and it's not reinforced with steel, and it's not thick. It doesn't have the thermal mass. It's still just 2 thin little walls, and it's just filled with insulation, which is the same thing as frame.
Oh, interesting.
So what we're working with the 3D printing companies, 3 of them in particular, Mudbots to be specific, we're getting ready to acquire a machine that's 35 foot by 9, or it can expand to print on a 35 foot by 90 foot thing. So, row housing is good.
Okay.
And it still gives me, just like this Earthship we're building this spring in California, a 10-inch thick concrete reinforced wall. So it's permitted conventionally. It's like concrete.
And we got a FedEx guy here. This is the real
All right.
deal. We are really live here.
Yes. I think I need to sign for it.
Okay. And we can always cut that too.
Hi, Jonah Reynolds. I got to sign for it right quick. How you doing? Great. Thank you. You bet. Have a good day. You too. Thank you. All right. Sorry about that.
No, no worries.
And so these 3D printing things, when Mudbots or I forget exactly who approached us last year, and so I was like, okay, that's interesting, but this is how I need it done. Thermal mass, performance. And so a couple Zooms back and forth, and they're like, yeah, that's great. That's a great idea. We can do that. They like curves better, which is interesting for Earthships. So long story short, we're getting ready to acquire a printer, hopefully sooner than later, and so that we can basically print 1,000 square feet in a day. And then we have all the plumbing and all the electrical the electrical in conduit in the walls and set up before we print and pour, so it gets all printed and poured around it. And then we come in with our crew and academy and add all of our off-grid living systems. And so pretty soon here we'll be the only school in the world that can teach students how to become pilots on a 3D printer machine, and so they're certified. So we're getting ready to integrate that into our academy, so that then so Earthships, and obviously there's some design issues like the whole Hobbit thing, but that's just aesthetic. But it's Earthships are a little more expensive, depending on the design, 10% or so. And so we can't really compete with these, again, my opinion, piece of shit frame things, and which is like $190 a square foot.
Yeah.
And we can't compete with prefab, which is fast, but you get what you pay for, right? I can drive my truck through a prefab thing. What 3D printers it fundamentally changes everything about Earthships. The biggest change we've ever had is it allows us to compete with frame because we're doing it fast, and it allows us, which lowers the cost, and it allows us to compete with prefab, so that it goes up fast. The framing thing gives us the cost drop, and the prefab thing gives us the competition, so that we're as fast, if not faster, than prefab. Because we were looking at doing a couple buildings in Joshua Tree, and we with prefab panels, 8-inch thick, but it's just frame and insulation. And we chose to just frame it ourselves because we can do it faster and better rather than shipping and all the embodied energy of these panels. And so 3D printing is very interesting, and the 3D printer fits into a 40-foot shipping container. As you know, we do disaster relief, India, Haiti, Guatemala, and all these places. And after 10 days, our typical thing that we've been doing for decades is we'll have one room, like a 15-foot diameter circle, and it's a teaching thing. And we have quick, strong shelter that can withstand the next 30-foot wall of water that happens, like in India. And we have quick potable water, catching it from the sky, running through filters. And we have quick flush toilet wastewater. We do that in 10 days. With this shipping container thing, we can drop the container anywhere on the side of a mountain. And now we can do probably 8 units in 10 days, 5 units. We can just help that many more people. And what we're really after is then provide affordable housing on these things. So I can go on and on about 3D printers, but that's going to fundamentally change everything and kind of, make Earthships that much more cost effective and time effective. And the whole off-gassing thing, even though it doesn't off-gas, But it eliminates that concern, because despite the fact that they don't off gas, some clients are just like, I don't like tires.
Yeah.
And that's okay.
Yeah.
Nothing
yeah.
wrong with that.
Yeah. I've noticed that too. I mean, despite like really, what off gassing is a material breaking down and decomposing really, and when you look at the tire wall, the tire is inside. It's basically sheltered from light, air, and moisture, the three elements that a material needs to break down. So it's pretty much inert. It's mummified. So I go on and on about that to people all every day in the visitor center. But at the end of the day, there is a stigma, and amongst certain people, and so it's like, having an option to do something else is, that's never hurts, because the concrete poured walls can function as well. Is that your experience? I mean,
well, it performs almost as well.
Almost as well, because you have dirt bermed up behind the wall, and so it can take on, and then the concrete is mass that can take on temperature. Do you insulate behind? Like, do you have a pocket?
Concrete?
Yeah,
same thing.
Do you do? Okay, so you have about 2 to 3 feet or whatever behind that's been insulated. Is that?
Yeah. So a typical, as you know, but the audience. So a typical tire wall is 2'4" thick, and then we go typically 4 feet out, and then we insulate. That's the thermal wrap that we did that literally turbocharged the temperature effectiveness, and so then we have the cistern and the whole earth berm. So instead of having a 2'4" thick tire wall, we have a 10-inch thick concrete wall with everything the same. So yes, it's a little bit less thermal mass, but when you do the concrete with a 4-foot thermal wrap with the rigid insulation and then the whole earth berm, it's basically the same, because that's a giant amount of thermal mass. If we're not going to do an earth berm, then just the same thing. If it was a tire wall or concrete, we just insulate with 4-inch rigid, or if the budget allows, 8-inch rigid, because you have to have insulation on the outside to protect the thermal mass from the extremes of the outside. You never insulate inside.
Yeah.
That's reversed. And so that's why I don't like frame buildings, because all it is insulation. It doesn't hold anything. So yeah, the concrete, it's thinner, but it's when you're in a climate that has intense winters, like Taos or Canada or Alaska and all these places, Norway that we've built, you are limited by design, because you got to perform for that. So in that situation, yeah, you might want to do tires instead of concrete, just because it works that much better. But in a place like California or Florida or Costa Rica, it really doesn't. It's so much easier to make a building perform in those places, and you don't have to orient toward the equator. You don't have to do solar gain. It's a lot easier. So like these builds that we're doing in Joshua Tree in Wrightwood, California, it gives the client that much more latitude to have the design they want, and us still being able to make the building perform.
Yeah, very cool. Are you guys are you partnering with anybody, collaborating with anybody? I know your dad doesn't really like to do that. He's kind of a, he's a little eccentric artist, and he doesn't really partner with people and do that. But are you looking to have partnerships with other architects or builders in the green building space? Is that something you're thinking about, or already moving on?
So our company is called Pangea for a reason. It's the name of that supercontinent millions and millions of years ago, when all the continents were together. And so our kind of motto there is that together we're stronger. It is literally the only way for us to move forward, together. And we're just we, meaning humans, are so much stronger when we're working together, when we have respect and honor for each other. And so there's that, but then there's also our one of our key things in our mission is to spread this knowledge everywhere, we've been doing this for 50 years. We're still the only organization that's doing buildings completely off-grid with no fossil fuels. There's something vastly wrong with that. So it is absolutely mission critical that we have as many people doing this and understanding as possible. Other companies that do this, other companies that build airships, and do all these off-grid living systems. So our academy teaches people how to build them. Our academy also brings in tradespeople that teach them how to build these, but we're also teaching people how to create and run and develop a business that does this. And so that's the long-winded answer of shortly just saying yes. Anyone and everyone, all tradespeople, everyone that can jump on board, that we can learn from also, that can learn from us and create this collaboration thing so that we can apply all this body of work, this 50 years of knowledge to all these different form factors and different ways of doing things, because diversity is absolutely king, or queen, I should say. We are stronger when we're together, and we're even stronger when we celebrate and embrace our diversity. We're not equals. We are different, and we must cherish that and honor that, and then we can really make big change. So the more partnerships, the better. Organizations, people, all of it.
I want to talk about your academy because so Earthship Biotecture has their own academy. We have internships. We have all that stuff, but your academy, from our previous conversations, is not just focused on one type of building. It's focused on a lot of different stuff. Could you tell me about like how that, what are your plans for the academy and what you guys are going to be doing?
Yeah. So our goal is to have the academy for free. And so right now we have, small little fees just to, cover expenses and overhead. But like, for example, this job we're doing up in Mora now, we're at like, I think it's 50 or 75 a month, and like 200 for the entire build. And then you get access to the entire online curriculum. And so, yeah, we just because it's what I've been doing my whole life, at the center of it, I guess you could say, is Earthships and all the systems. But, it's like solar power is not exclusive to us, catching water, all of these things. None of it is exclusive to us. Yes, we do it in a unique way where everything's designed down and a little different. But, yeah, we teach Adobe, Passive House, how to fit all these systems into different designs. And so Earthships is just a very, not necessarily small, but a medium part of it. And so we are very proud of that we're not just exclusive to one thing, and it broadens it broadens it up. And so we teach all these different building methods and systems and ways of doing things. We bring in teachers from all these different disciplines. Because, we've been doing this for 50 years, but we're not the be-all, end-all. We're not the experts. And so one of the things about the academy is that it's all about collaboration and creating this kind of this tribe network of people where we're all teaching each other. And we have this nice formula where we're a full service firm and we design, build an academy and all these things. And so it's very conducive to research and to teaching. And so we're always bringing in experts. Like right now we're bringing in someone about primary water to teach us all about that, which I'm new to. Like 6 months ago I heard about it, and it's amazing.
I'd love to talk. I mean, I'd love to talk about primary water.
It's fascinating. Yeah. And like Charlie Meyer, who we've been working with for decades, getting cisterns and everything, and he's we're bringing him in to teach all about catch water and cisterns and everything, and metal buildings. He's built 90 or 80% of all the metal buildings in Taos County.
Oh wow!
And that's a structure. Yeah, it's like containers. It doesn't work very well on its own, but it's just another structure that is a solution. There's a ton of solutions. And what we found is that, we're out there on the spear tip that we've told about off-grid and all that and fossil fuel free. And it seems like over the decades, there's been like, the straw bale people don't like the Adobe people, and they don't like the roster brick people, and none of them like the Earthship people. And so it's just like, enough is enough. We need to come together, because, the world is getting kind of fucked up, and it's insane that we're fighting over oil and water, and there's people who are homeless. And so part of our main goals here, to just get back to that question about do we work with partners and are we interested, is we're creating the situation where we're have this curriculum where everyone is together and we celebrate each other's expertise and our knowledge, and we're representative of a diverse amount of people in different cultures and different climates. People who are building in Australia, there's a ton of things for us to learn from them, so that we can then apply that over here to this climate. And so that's critical, that there can't be one organization or one body of knowledge that's like, oh, it's us. All right, it's enough of this competition. Let's really come together and show the world that this industry of sustainability is together and united with solutions, because we have it all right now to fix the world, to be broad. It's just a simple choice.
Yeah.
Very simple.
Yeah. Maybe don't spend $1 million on a missile that's going to destroy a bunch of homes and kill a bunch of people. Yeah.
When we can build 1,000 affordable housing units in Detroit.
Yeah, exactly. So tell me about the basically the system that you have for hiring from within in the academy, like the patch system and all that. I was very interested in that.
Yeah, Valerie, who's our CEO in our company, she who happens to be a black belt in kickboxing, she came up with this system called it's the Pangea recognition system. So it's very similar to the karate belts of how you advance, and we have requirements and testing and online tests and in the field tests, and for example, with water, you have to help with systems, and then eventually you build your own system with oversight, and then we use the extreme disaster relief type things under duress to still build a system. And then, then they teach, and they eventually get to, I think it's the red belt at that point. And we have this patch thing that is based on the flower of life, and it just so happens that it works when it's the seed of life for each of these 6 or 7 systems. And then inside of that seed of life, that sacred geometry, are a bunch of 7 Vesica Pisces, which is when you put 2 circles together. So that's where we have the belt thing, and those colors are velcroed in and out as you advance through the recognition system. So I think it's, you start at the white belt, which is the free online curriculum at pangeaacademy.org, and then I think when you enter into the brown belt, which is about halfway through, then you're eligible to get hired, because it's nice to get a piece of paper when you finish a 1-month field study, which after 1 month, you're not going to know how to build an Earthship. It's literally going to take you probably 2 or 3 full builds to then do it yourself. But that's not for everyone. Everyone does not want to build their own Earthship completely by themselves or start their own business. A lot of people just want to get hired. And so going through, I think to get to the brown belt, you need 3... And if we're using water as an example, you go through 3 sessions focusing on water. Then you're eligible to get hired to help on a build to do water. So it's nice to get a piece of paper, but that doesn't mean anything. And so we have this tracking system on our website where we're documenting, and they get the patch, and then easily on a crew on a job site, you can just look and be like, okay, that person has a brown belt in water, so I can go ask them questions. And And so immediately we're scaling so fast with so many projects right now that we're desperate to hire. And so it benefits us, but it also benefits, like going back to that partnership thing. We're working with a lot of other organizations and builders and designers all over the world, and specifically here in the solar capital of the world, which is from the music festival that we started, and that was powered by the sun in '97, and the largest solar powered radio station in the world, which we built the transmission building for on the top of the mountain. And so here, like Maggie Construction, who I went to high school with, there's amazing builders and designers here in Taos. So we're hoping to have this recognition system, identify students who are educated and skilled enough through our academy to document that, and us hire them, or I'll go to like Jed McGee or Ted Elsasser or any of these amazing people and be like, yo, we got some people here who are skilled this way from being trained up in these Earthship builds or whatever other type of builds. Hire them because they're really good and we recommend them. And so that furthers our mission, so we get more people doing these things. And it also meets the needs of all these students who, that's been the biggest ask since we started the academy. It's like the piece of paper is nice, but I want to do something. I want to get hired. And so we've heard that and we've met that need, and that is set up right now. And so we're hoping that whole system, that recognition, and it's really recognition and honor for these people, these students that bust their ass on these things, not to mention going on these disaster relief cause things. And then, you know, we get to create crew and build that up, because that's kind of hard to find out there, people with experience of doing sustainable design and construction, right? And so yeah, that need is met there, and we're launching our academy, and it's you know, it also helps to move people out of these other jobs that might, you know, quote unquote, be dead end, or people can't be super passionate about, and it creates the whole green job thing. And then this is, like I said earlier, a super amazing thing to be doing this. And when you have people who are passionate doing a really righteous thing that helps people, you start like really changing things, right?
Yeah, I think what's really interesting right now, so before I came and started working full time with Earthships, I was in media in Los Angeles, you know, and I watched how, I watched a couple things. I watched how COVID forced a lot of studios to downsize, and strangely enough, and during COVID, it was very interesting, like who was essential workers and who was non-essential workers. And interestingly enough, people that were building houses, people that were plumbers and electricians and all that stuff were essential workers. And that you know, it was just that language that sort of highlighted to me, I'm non-essential. Media is non-essential. The industry is it's retracting. Like, and so, you know, what I see millennials, and I mean, like, I'm a millennial. I'm actually like I was born in 1983, so I'm like right at the beginning millennial, and people in my generation can't afford houses because the houses, like, the rents keep going up, the housing prices keep going up, and it doesn't look like it's going down anytime soon. And so what I see, the general trend is that we need more housing because, you know, more supply, you know, will decrease price, you know, eventually. Affordable housing. I mean, yeah. And so that's why I'm really here, you know, because I believe that this is the essential work that we need to be doing. Like, we need to be building houses and building them faster and cheaper if we can, but like build them and without utilities. I mean, we need to, I think the resilience of the Earthship is what really brought me to Earthships, you know, way back in like 2012 when I first started looking at them. And so what do you, like, what in an ideal world, what would you do to address the housing problem in, the unaffordability of housing in, just say, the United States?
Build airships.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the most affordable method to do it. When we go off and do disaster relief, there are no codes, there are no permits. Mm-hmm. It's a disaster, mm-hmm. right? And so in that situation, like, it's all the rules and codes are thrown out of the window. Like, my father talks about when the United States decided to develop weapons of mass destruction down in Los Alamos. There were no rules or laws or any limits on budget. It was like, we don't care what happens, we're going to make this happen no matter what, because it was critical in their perspective, mm-hmm. right? Even though maybe a lot of other people disagree, like myself, like dropping a bomb on a frickin' city. Mm-hmm. But that's where we're at right now. We are in the emergency room. I start out a lot of my lectures like this with a big slide as people are coming into the auditorium. We are in an emergency room. We're mission critical. We're on life support, and the hospital is losing power, let alone our health and our ability to survive on this planet. So, and being in the Western world, especially in the States, we have so much insulation around us. We don't see what's really going on in the world. Yeah, we have a hard day, but come on. And how long have we been doing this podcast so far? About an hour and a half. I think like 10 kids die every 5 minutes in the world from lack of potable water. Mm-hmm. So just making the point of, like, this is a disaster. There's a disaster in every inner city in the world, let alone Detroit and Houston, Miami. There's homeless people. In 2024, there's people in poverty who can't afford to live. It's absolutely bonkers. So what do we need to do? And this is what we've been doing with some counties is, and we're doing this in San Diego. We're doing this in Portland, Maine. We're doing this here in Taos County. Is we're working with the counties to get county or city-owned land that might be neglected or not in ideal places that developers might want to do, like a certain 27 acres right next to the airport here in Taos, that we just signed the purchase agreement on, to do affordable housing. But like my father did, that Sustainable Test Site Act, right? That's the model, which is mimicked after what they did with in Los Alamos with creating the bomb, is no codes, nothing whatsoever to make affordable housing happen. And it worked. It evolved the buildings to the point where we really figured like 10 years of research in like a year, right? Because when we're building a building for a client or something, halfway through it's obsolete. Because we're like, oh, that, and that, and then we can't wait to get to the next model. And so we need to build affordable housing as fast as possible. We need to create financing structures to make that happen. We have a nonprofit to raise money for that. We're spinning up a capital division so that we can finance our clients ourselves. We're bringing on investment to do that. Basically creating our own bank. And so counties, banks, and building departments, planning and zoning all need to get together, and enough talk and enough bullshit and enough committees, and just be like, clear out the way to build affordable housing so that they can rent a 500 square foot place for $500 with no utilities. No utility bills, and that it has to be treated like an emergency, like absolutely critical, and it has to happen in every single county. And we've been doing this a long time, and we do have the solution. Earthships, rammed earth and tires are the most effective and the most affordable. There are options like concrete and things, and then these systems. That's what needs to be done immediately.
Yeah, I agree. the thing that there is, I mean, stick frame can get way cheaper than Earthships because they don't have any they basically are plugged into the grid. But and so what I try to tell people is with the Earthship, each home is its own power company. It's water company, it's a sewage company, it's your electric company, and so these systems cost money. We really can't get these systems. They have to be purchased and they're very expensive.
But 3D printing makes it on the level of framing.
So can you 3D print a cistern? You probably could, right? Yeah. And so
when you're talking about cisterns, it's way more cost per gallon to just buy a proper cistern, right? Like the things we get from Charlie Meyer, 1,700 gallons and all that. But yeah, I mean, you can print any structure, and as long as it's concrete reinforced with steel, it's going to be strong. But that's what 3D printing does, is that even though our buildings come with all these off-grid living systems that make it like 10% more expensive than an average home, and it's not going to have any utility bills, so ultimately it's way cheaper than a conventional home. But 3D printing allows us to upfront be on the level of a frame stick home, but with the off-grid buildings or off-grid systems, right? And so, but you touched on an interesting point there, which is when there is an incredible amount of stress and anxiety and PTSD from not having a home, from being homeless or couch surfing. It's like, if you haven't done it, you're just not going to understand. And hopefully you have empathy and compassion enough to understand how hard that is and how hard to wrangle your being out from that. So that takes time after someone who doesn't have a house gets into a house to get comfortable again and actually think of the idea of like a 9 to 5 or all these, things that you're supposed to do to be a positive contribution to society. And so when you're in a home that is off grid with all these systems and it takes care of you, the 9 to 5 need goes away. The stress and struggle goes away. So we become nicer to each other and nicer to ourselves, which obviously has great implications on society. And so these buildings it's the same thing on quote unquote high-end luxury 5-bedroom things, which is fine. Everyone has a right to have the building they want. That is totally fine. The exact same building methods and systems are there for quote unquote affordable housing or disaster relief. It's the same thing, and both ends of that financial strata are getting into a home that takes care of them. And it works very, very well.
Yeah. I wonder now, as we're getting here to the end or near the end. I mean, we got 52 minutes. I did want to kind of go into like more kind of fun stuff. Well, I mean, like we're going to put on our little maybe conspiracy hat here and talk about, you've got incentives, monetary incentives to keep people in the system, in that 9 to 5 job. And I mean, you have
like the education system.
Well, the education system is I mean, they basically take kids and put them into indentured servitude right off the bat, right out of high school. You got, I mean, I have a friend who went to he went to Berkeley undergrad and then Michigan Law. He owes close to $180,000 in debt, and walking right into the workforce. He's an attorney, but he struggles to make those payments, and it just puts an unneeded amount of stress on somebody to have just be loaded up with debt, before they're 25 years old, and so the thing about a house that is completely off the grid with there are forces aligned in the world to keep that from happening, to keep people from being able to just live free with no utilities. Oh, yeah. And so so that's just one of those things, like why people ask ask me a lot of times in the visitor center, like, why have I never heard of Earthships? Why have I never heard of these buildings? And, I mean, that might be by design, so.
Well, I mean, I have some thoughts on that. I think you can have the greatest solution in the world, but if you don't have your shit together to present it to the world, it's going to go nowhere. Absolutely nowhere. And so you really have to honor that solution to create some type of a construct to get it out to the world. And that's an organization. And so that needs to be done in a way where the mainstream or the conventional world can accept it and take it in, and that's our hope with Pangea, to bring it in that way. But humans have been like that for thousands and thousands and thousands of years. Ego, power, control, resources, money. It's nothing new. The Egyptians say everything. There's nothing new under the sun, and that's just the way it is. But when you have, I'll come back to it again. When you have people in these sustainable off-grid housing, the need for that goes away. It's like when you're in a house that does not cost you anything to operate, no utility bills, and you're sitting warm when it's 20 below outside. You're not going to need like, oh, I got to go buy that new toy or whatever it is. You're calmer, you're happier, you're nicer. And so this is more than just a building. This is a way of life that fundamentally changes things. And like Bruce Lee says, it makes us like water. And that's our hope and our intention with Pangea, so that there is no real figurehead. There is no one person. We're everywhere. And that's why we want to partner with everyone and learn from everyone. So it's just everywhere. There's no one thing that can be taken down, and it just spreads everywhere. It can't really be controlled. Like we're talking, the education system is set up to have their students, just do that and not think. For lack of a better phrase. And so, yeah, we're fully aware of all that, but, I'd partner with Chevron. I'd partner with Trump. I don't care who it is. And yeah, we might have differences in how we treat women and things like that. But we're all humans. We're all living here together. And we need to take care of each other. And once we understand that, I think, we start to mellow out and just respect each other's differences. We all just want to live and have some fun and enjoy the sunshine and all that. And not to get all big and crazy, but those things happen when we get into sustainable off-grid buildings. It spreads like a slippery slope.
So I want to ask you about primary water, because you were talking about it in our last meeting, and I wanted to I just wanted to like what is primary water, and how did you stumble upon this concept? Or
so my business partners, Valerie and John, who are running our company, they brought it to me. Recently. I'm new to it, so I'm definitely not an authority, but it is water that has not been exposed to the atmosphere, that is pure and is available in some places very deep, but is available in some places, much more shallow. And so we have an expert with us that can not just identify where water is to help with water drilling, which we're going to do at the Greater World and the Castle and other places. Is to identify that primary water and bring it in, because catch water works. It's great, and we're upgrading our water organizing modules to filter out glyphosate and things like that, because some places the air quality is not good, and that's the rain and the snow that comes through that. And so that's why we're looking very intensely and to primary water and introducing it to some of our clients. like a project in Georgia and a project in Mora, and like I said, Great World and things where it's a no-brainer. Of course we want cleaner and healthier water. It's pure and untouched. So that's pretty much what it is. And that's pretty much all I know about it so far. But yeah, there's this guy named Mark Burr that we're working with. And he's the expert. He's been doing it for decades, and it's amazing the wealth of knowledge that he has and the perspective around that primary water.
That's very exciting. Well, did you want to talk about anything else, or first of all, where you're at Pangea? What's your website for people to go visit?
PangeaDesignBuild.com. The academy is PangeaAcademy.org. And obviously also Earthship.com. And so that's where you can find all this info. I highly encourage everyone to visit Taos, visit the visitor center, go to earthship.com. The phone number is 575-751-0462. There's a visitor center you can walk through. There's nightly rentals. And you can see pictures on Google and at the website and things, but when you get into a nightly rental and experience it and see how well you sleep in them and all the gray water planters and potentially picking bananas and papayas in the middle of the winter, highly encourage it. Go check it out.
All right, cool. Well, this is Will, and for Jonah, we're done with our first podcast.
All right.
Yeah.
Good job. That was great.
Yeah, that was fun.